Hey, hey. So, ready for part 2 of your celebration? Yes? Okay, let's correct all of those. This, particularly, question numbers 1 through 6, was it was a rough one. I'm not gonna lie. Basically, you either knew it or you didn't. And if you didn't, you were screwed. And if you knew it, you did great. So, um, really not a lot of ways you can guess your way through this. So, let me show you how we do, starting with the first ones, 45, 45, 90 triangles. All right, so I just picked some random triangles. It may be from your test or it could be from the other version. So you just want to make sure you're kind of looking again for the questions that match the ones you missed. Even if you didn't miss these and you're retaking part 2, I highly encourage you to maybe take some notes or follow along and just make sure you really understand all the questions, even if you didn't miss it. So, let's start with the rules. Here's what you need to know, okay? If you did not have the rules memorized, didn't do well. For a 45, 45, 90 triangle, this is going to be your equation. The hypotenuse equals the leg times the square root of 2. If you can remember that, guys, all you have to do is just plug it in. I promise. It's not bad. Okay? For example, look at this first one. The hypotenuse is 16 square root of 2. So I'm going to plug in 16 square root 2. Okay? And I guess this is x. So that's the leg. Remember, in a 45, 45, both of the legs are actually the same. So both of these would be x. So you would just plug in x times the square root of 2. Now it's just algebra. How do you isolate this variable? You need to divide by the square root of 2. But whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. So that cancels out this guy here. And look what it does over here. Also cancels it out. So you're left with 16, and then the x is by itself. So that is my leg for this 45, 45, 90 triangle. Not bad. Okay. The next one, same formula. Hypotenuse equals leg times square root of 2. But in this case, it's going to ask you for the hypotenuse. So that's my x. So you're going to say x equals the leg, which is, in this case, 8 square root of 2. And then times the square root of 2. Again, just plugging it into the formula. Hypotenuse equals leg times the square root of 2. So all I've done is plug in my leg, which is right here. Now I need to multiply the like terms, which are going to be the square roots. So 2 times 2, look, it's happy, is the square root of 4. Now if you said this, I gave you partial credit, but you're not done yet, because this 4 needs to be simplified. Remember, that can break down into 2 and 2, which is a pair. Comes out of the jail and there's nothing left. So it's going to multiply with the 8 to get 8 times 2, which is 16. And that's your answer. Okay, the hypotenuse x is 16. Oh, well, that's interesting. They both turned out to be 16. Okay, now this last one's a little trickier. So this happens when the hypotenuse is an integer, meaning it's just a number with no square roots. Okay, we're going to use the same formula. Hypotenuse equals leg times square root of 2. I'm going to write it down again, which you should too, because the more you write it down, the easier it will be to memorize. Then we plug in what we know. So we know the hypotenuse is 10. We are trying to find, let's put x right there, the leg. Okay, and that's going to be plug in your square root 2. Remember the process for the first one we did? Divide by the square root of 2. Good. But whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. Here's why this one's a little trickier. You might have noticed now that the square root of 2 is not going to cancel out with anything on the left. And I can't simplify those two because they're not like terms. So that's not going to become 5 or the square root of 5. It's just 10 over the square root of 2. But what's the problem with that? We do not like square roots in the denominator. So we have to do what's called rationalizing. Okay, to rationalize, you need to multiply the top and the bottom by the bottom. We've done this before, right? So the top is going to become 10 square root of 2. The bottom is going to become 2 times 2 is the square root of 4. But you keep going. The square root of 4 is actually the same thing as, 2. So that just becomes a 2. That's a 2. On the top, I'm going to leave that the same. It hasn't changed. Again, those 2's are not going to cancel because one is a square root but the other isn't. However, these 2 are considered like terms. And I can simplify 10 over 2 to give me 5. So 5 square root of 2 is my final answer. Okay? Now, if you had said 10 over square root of 2, you probably got partial credit. But you're not done yet. You need to rationalize that. Okay? Okay. If you want some extra practice before you retake the test, just let me know. I'll give you some examples. Okay? Just do some random numbers. So that's 45, 45, 90. All right. Now for the ones where they are 30, 60, 90, let's think about our rules. Okay? Now for these, you actually have 2 rules to follow. You have this equation, the hypotenuse equals 2 times the short leg. You also have the second equation, which states the long leg is short times square root of 3. So you have to kind of figure out which one to use. Sometimes you might need to use both. So let's start with this first example I have drawn here. Maybe try to see if there's one similar to this on your test. Okay? So, I'm given the hypotenuse. So way past my bedtime. Okay. I'm given the hypotenuse, and I want to find the short leg. So that means I'm going to be using this formula here. So plug in what you know. 8 square root of 3 is the hypotenuse, equals 2 times the short leg, which is x. Remember how we isolate the variable? You need to divide by what's next to it. But whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Cancels out the 2's on the right, and on the left, this can be simplified. So 8 over 2 becomes 4, and then square root of 3. So 4 square root of 3 is my short leg right here. Okay? What if I wanted you to go one step further and find the long leg? Why don't we just do that? It's better to practice. So you're prepared for any question on the retake. So let's call this y. Then you would do this formula, which is the long leg equals short times square root of 3. So the long leg is y. The short leg I now found to be 4 square root of 3, so plug that in, times x. Oh, what am I saying? What am I copying? Times the square root of 3. Just plug it into your formula. So then I'm going to do 3 times 3 in like terms, which is 4 square root of 9. Okay, but keep going because that 9 can break down to a pair of 30s. So that comes out to give you 4 times 3. Radical goes away. 4 times 3 is 12. So your long leg here would be 12. Okay? Got that? And move this out of the way. Okay. let's try this other one. Now I give you the long leg, and you want to find the hypotenuse. So this is a special case here, where you're going to have to use both formulas. Use both formulas. Start with what you're given, that's the long leg. So long equals short times the square root of 3. So the long leg, plug that in, is 10 square root of 3. The short leg, I don't know, let's call it y times the square root of 3. Okay, so now we have to solve for y. So we're going to divide by the square root of 3. Do that on both sides. That's going to cancel it out here. And cancels it over here. So guess what that means for our short leg? It is simply 10. Okay, which a lot of you guys did, and then you forgot to go one step further, which was actually to find this hypotenuse here. So now I have to use the second equation, which is that the hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg. Now that I know the short leg, I simply am going to plug in 2 times 10, which is 20. So my final answer for x is 20. Cool? Okay. All right. And let's do this one here. This is one more that's pretty similar. Okay. This one's pretty easy actually. So you have the short leg. So I'm looking for the long leg. Long leg is short leg times the square root of 3. So I'm going to plug in what I know. I know that I'm looking for the long leg. I know the short leg is 4 times the square root of 3. Look at that. You're actually done. Because x is already isolated, you don't need to solve anything, and you're actually done. So 4 square root of 3 is the long leg. Wasn't that fun? Okay, let's just double check to make sure you know how to find the hypotenuse. Let's say this was a y here. So you would use the formula. The hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg. So it would be y equals 2 times 4. Oh, and that's just 8. So this would be 8. Okay? If you're still confused, guys, all I'm doing right now is just taking my short leg, long leg, or hypotenuse, and I'm just plugging it into the following formulas. This for 45, 45, 90, right? And then these two for 30, 60, 90. Okay, so you have 2 options for those. Sometimes you have to use both of them, sometimes just one of them. That's for your 30, 60, 90. Okay, I don't know how else to help you with this section other than to tell you to memorize those 3 very short equations. There's 3 of them. Memorize them. Have a friend quiz you. Make some flashcards. I don't know, but you gotta get it in your brain before you take the retest, or you're just gonna have the same effect. Okay? All right. That's all for this part. I'll do another one for the trig part on the back. Cool, cool, cool. Bye.